David coming to you from Hilton Head Health on the beautiful Hilton Head Island, and we're bringing to you another podcast of Health Talk. Today we have a very special guest. She is actually a success story of Hilton Head Health and is currently a practicing psychotherapist, and her name is Ann Basta. Welcome to Health Talk, Ann.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, David.
Is there anything else that you'd like to introduce about yourself?
I'm a frequent guest of Hilton Head because I love it and it's helped me change my life and it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. So
cool.
Here I am.
Very cool. And when was your first visit to Hilton Head?
Wow. Yeah. So that was in 2011 when they had that intensive program where I stayed over 3 months. I think in total I was here for 4.5 months. And so that was a really interesting experience. Of course, I lost weight and, it worked in that regard, but I don't think I was ready mentally at that time. So that's why I came back in 2016, 50 pounds heavier than I did. So beat my own personal record.
That was my first time meeting you.
Yeah, that's right. That's true.
Lose Well program.
Yes, I'll never forget that when you yelled at me and told me that if I don't show up to 7:30 a.m. workouts, that I'm out of the program.
It didn't happen quite like that.
That's how I remember it.
That's how you remember it?
That's how I remember it.
So, okay, I remember though. So you were in the Lose Well program, and I was Lose Well coach at the time. And I noticed that you hadn't shown up the first couple of days to Lose Well. And I asked to talk to you about it. And you were like, ooh, principal's office.
I think I didn't want to come in with the same mentality as 2011. And I don't think that I actually did, because on my drive down in 2011, I hit a few Waffle Houses and was having like a real last hurrah type of moment.
That Last Supper.
Basically, that lasted like a good month. But this time in 2016, I was really careful about what I brought on the drive down with me, and I really think that I was more ready. But honestly, when I got there, it was me and my friend, obviously, and that bike ride to the building just scared me, man. I was so out of breath. I was just like, oh my goodness, I'm, behind square one. I've lost everything that I gained when I was here the first time. I was just kind of overwhelmed. And obviously at the time my habits weren't the best in terms of my sleeping and, those sort of things. So I was trying to still kind of comfort myself, which I'll kind of get into later on. But I just thought I'm not a morning person, so I'm going to have to make this work still on my terms, like still trying to hold on, to something that felt like on my terms. But I think the way you approached me was that you meant business, kind of, which was, everyone here is so incredibly sweet and very friendly and everything. Not that you're not friendly. Oh my God, you're like the Mr. Friendly, but you just told me like, listen, you got to give it a shot. You got to do the program as it's intended. And then you said, guess what? I'm going to be the person lecturing next week. So why don't you just give it a try? Show up Monday. Show up Monday. And if you absolutely hate it, then we can talk. And the rest is history. Here I am. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So.
And then you didn't miss another day of that.
I sure did not. I showed up. I made a lot of noise that day. I'm like, I'm here. It's 7:30. Give me a banana. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing right now. Let's go. Yeah, that was it.
And you went through the Lose Well program on that day in 2016, and you've stuck with it since then. For the most part, right?
Yeah. Leaving here, I was just so ready. I felt so empowered. I had appointments set up for at home. I had instructions to clear the entire house of any paraphernalia food. I was like patting people down. I'm like, what's in your pocket? Is that a cookie? Out, But I was taking it very seriously, and I was just so ready. And I ended up hooking up with another trainer whose name is Dave, because I think that's what it is. It's just my trainer has to be named Dave. So we ended up working together, and I just continued focusing on the right things. And it became like a pleasure, a lovely journey that I was excited to be on, rather than this thing that I'm trying to get over with. You
So
know?
how did that transition happen? So like, because for someone who hasn't gotten there yet, that might sound like that would never happen to
Yeah.
them. How did that happen to you?
I mean, being here helped a lot in that it helped me make these more positive associations with certain things like eating a certain kind of way and moving my body. And so I really just stuck to the plan. And I didn't get ahead of myself and I didn't say, well, what needs to happen next? I just focused on each day as it came. And I just focused on literally moving my body and eating things that I felt proud to put in my body. That's how I shifted it, right? So it truly became about health most of all. I didn't think about a diet. I didn't think I need to take out any certain food group. I just said we're going to eat like we do in Hilton Head, where it's whole foods as much as possible in a, portioned amount, and that's it, really.
Are
So
there any healthy foods that you don't like, but you eat them anyway?
It's tricky to say don't like. I think, I there are foods that I just don't like. So like goat cheese is gross, no offense, but kind of don't care. But no, like beans or whatever. But in the end, what happened was that I really tried to shift how much of my enjoyment was coming from an eating experience versus everything else. And so, obviously before I came here, I didn't really have any other source of pleasure or joy or anything to uplift me because I felt very stuck in my body. But then when I started thinking, like, oh, you can go for a walk at the park, and that started to feel exciting. And so it was like, okay, eat your healthy breakfast and then let's go because we got to go to the park.
So you were maybe overly dependent on food being your source of all joy.
Oh, 100%. And I can talk more about that in terms of just, me being a therapist, and I actually also went to medical school and graduated medical school and worked in research and was published in addictions. But I didn't actually get residency because I was over 350 pounds at the time, and it was just very challenging to take on the responsibilities of a resident at that time. So, anyway, it all worked out in the end because I went back and got my master's, and now I'm doing what I've always truly, deeply wanted to do, which is to work with people one on one. So, because of my academics and my personal experience, I would say that there is such a thing as food addiction, and it really does follow along those type of criteria in which you think about food as this kind of substance. And when you're not eating, you're thinking about eating, and you're thinking about what you're going to eat. And I would spend a lot of time looking things up and looking at pictures of food and because it was the thing that kept the whole operation going is what I thought, right? So the way my relationship with food was just very unhealthy. And then when I was able to recognize that and recognize some tough truths, I was able to really work on that relationship and come to, I would say, it's a work in progress always, but it's the healthiest it's ever been, right? So, I mean, but that doesn't mean I don't have my experiences with binging and restricting and all that stuff. So, like I said, it's a work in progress, but it's all about kindness and there is no track. So it's never like I got off track, right? Because this is my lifestyle.
Right.
So it's never like, oh, it's the holidays. Let me just do whatever and then I'll get on track Monday, Like I always try to make it a mindful experience where I just, again, go back to the basics. I feel proud of the food I'm choosing to put in my body.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah,
So you feel proud about the food you're choosing to put
correct.
in your body. So
Yes.
you mentioned relationship with food, and I'm curious from a personal and professional perspective, what does an unhealthy relationship with food look like, and what does a healthy one look like?
Okay, so I would say that you would also look at the criteria of a healthy relationship with a loved one in general. So
Okay.
general terms, it's not that much different, right? So let's just talk about what a healthy relationship is in general. So it's not a one-way street. It feels like a safe place. It's nourishing and it doesn't feel like a punishment or a reward or something that you have to earn, right? So if food kind of covers any of that criteria, then you might want to take a look at how you're eating, and then it could be kind of classified as disordered eating. So some stuff that could signal you might have disordered eating is like kind of what we talked about with the addiction, where there's just a really strong preoccupation with food and an anxiety that can start to build before you have any meal, because it's always an internal struggle. Like, you don't want to eat this because there is a level that might know this might not be great for you, but you just want it so bad. And it's just food. And what's the big deal? And I'm not hurting anybody. And where's my extra cheese fries? You know what I mean? So it's that's what I mean about punishment, and kind of shifting from this idea like, oh, well, I can't have that and I can't have that. And it's like, oh, well, you can choose to put something you feel good about putting in your body, right? So I started to really see it from like, oh, I get to do this experience, rather than, oh, this is restriction and it has to stay away from me. So again, feeling anxious prior to a food experience, feeling guilty after eating. A lot of people with disordered eating, just the feeling of fullness starts to trigger guilt, right? And so, you know, again, I don't, it's a spectrum just like any other disorder, and so there can just be features where it can show up sometimes that way with food and sometimes not. But either way, it's always a good advice to just talk to someone, because shame is a huge thing with any eating disorder. You just feel ashamed. It's food, for God's sake. Like, come on, give me a break, like, just stop eating, just don't eat as much, and gosh, if it was that simple, well, Hilton Head would be out of business. So, thank God for that. But no, just talk to somebody. It's okay. You will be surprised how many people can relate to this experience, actually, no matter what their body size. No matter what their body size. I've seen literally people of every single shape, color, denomination. This stuff does not discriminate, okay? And it's kind of built into a lot of cultures to have a certain feeling regarding food. So, it makes a lot of sense. And I think if you just, look up a support group, reach out to a friend, be brave to say, like, you know, I really binged last night and I feel like I shouldn't eat all day today, but I know that that's not what's good for my body, and get support with it.
So get support, talk to somebody. What are there any other like small actions or tips that someone could, like, if someone is experiencing shame when they eat or guilt when they're full, is there any small thing in addition to talking with someone, or whether it's a professional or their friends, that they can do?
Well, there's lots of things we can do, but again, if we're going to talk about this in the way of addiction, it's almost like, it's expected that you were not able to make the decision based on your rational mind. So to tell an addict to kind of just deal with it themselves, might feel a little bit difficult for that person. So the tips and tricks would be that you know what your triggers are, you understand how you respond to food around you. Like, at one point when I was just really being extremely mindful, I was afraid to watch TV because of commercials. Because there you are, minding your own business, watching a Hallmark movie, and boom, Popeye's chicken ad, go get McDonald's. And then I love the way they squeeze it between a Peloton ad. So it's like, go get McDonald's, but then you feel terrible about yourself. Go get a Peloton, but then reward yourself with some KFC. So it's like they got all the bases covered there.
Messing with your mind.
Exactly, right? So again, just kind of like tuning in to your eating experience, which can be super difficult because most of the time we've just made a decision and we're just going to do what we're going to do and eat what we're going to eat, and it's just this mindless experience. So tracking alone, just for you to know, and so that it becomes a thing that feels empowering rather than someone's watching over you and this expectation, just so you can see what's going on.
So interesting. So you're tracking not for someone else, but tracking just for you to see. You don't need to share it with anybody.
That's how it's got to
create
start.
Awareness.
Correct. Because if you're ashamed of what you're already eating. That's the thing about tracking. It's not extra stuff. It's what you've already eaten.
It's interesting you say that because I've guests have actually told me or told other coaches with Hilton Head Health that they will lie on their tracking to make their coach happy.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's precisely what I mean. This pressure to eat a certain kind of way. And if you're not able to do so, there's a reason. If you're not able to stick to 1500, it's okay. Let's go to 17. Make it extra protein. It's not a big deal. But if it starts to become this idea where we have to restrict, because that's just the most common thing. I need to restrict to compensate for all the years, for all the days, for all the weeks I spent doing otherwise.
Have you found that, those who struggle with honestly tracking
Yes.
with a coach, are some of these challenges often paired with like a people pleasing because they've spent so much time trying to please others that they overlook themselves, and even when they're working on a coach whose job is for them, they still want to please their coach more than they want to help themselves?
Oh boy, so you're hitting right on my specialty. So what you're describing here is actually a feature of something called perfectionism. And most of my people pleasers don't have great self-esteem, even though they're very kind and generous and overextend themselves, but they always feel like they're not doing enough. And as you can imagine, if you never hit the mark, if no matter how hard you try, it's always disappointment, you're going to give up. You're going to feel sad and discouraged, and you're not going to want to do it anymore. Okay? So what that is that black and white, all or nothing mentality. And a lot of people struggle with that because they want certainty. Well, I'll do it, but is it going to work? Actually, I had this revelation. So after I got back from Hilton Head and I was doing one of my walks, and at that time my goal was like 6,000 steps, which was, to me, felt like a miracle because I couldn't even take one step in the beginning. But okay, so there I am in the park, and then I'm like, wait a minute, what if this doesn't work? And I'm having this dialogue with myself. I think a little out loud, so people were looking, but it's fine. So I'm like, wait a minute, what if this doesn't work? And then I switched over, and I'm like, well, what doesn't work?
All of a sudden, the crowd around you is paranoid. What's not working around here?
And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, like, okay, what do you mean by that? What doesn't work? And I'm like, well, walking and eating healthy. So then I was like, well, you know what? Then I will be the fattest one out there, walking every day and eating healthy. I'll be a phenomenon. I'll defy the physics, right? Because I know what I'm consuming, because at that time I was really proud of tracking and feeling super great about knowing every single thing that went into my body. So I was like, so that's going to be me then.
How did you get to the point where you could even think to respond to yourself in that way? What if this doesn't work? And then you say, it doesn't matter whether or not I lose weight. I'm doing this anyway. What was that?
It's when I decided that this journey was actually for me. Because the next question was like, what if there was no men on the planet? And then I was like, no, what if there was no one on this planet at all? Nobody on Earth. And you know what I thought, David? I was like, well, if there's nobody on Earth, then I have access to everything. So like I could go anywhere in the world. And what am I going to...
really philosophical.
Oh my God, you have no idea. And then I'm like, well, the thing is, though, if I wanted to enjoy the world, I'd need to be able to move my body. Like if the world was empty and I'm just there to enjoy it, the beach, the mountains, like that's what I started thinking about. Well, what would be left over? Nature. Because I was in the park, right? And I thought, well, how could I fully enjoy nature if my body's not working for me? And I'm not able to do that.
So you're saying you've already seen the benefits of eating healthy and being active help you with your mobility, with your energy, and you're like, okay, if I can get all of these other things and not lose any weight, that's still better than not having those other things and not losing any weight.
Correct. It really shifted from the weight will come, whether it does or doesn't, whatever. But let's just focus on these activities, these things that I'm doing, falling in love with the ritual and not just the outcome.
You had a really deep way of asking yourself, okay, what does that number on the scale mean to me? But instead of asking that question, you said, what if no one existed? And it kind of got you to the same place.
Look, I can't just take all this credit and be like, well, I just had this Zen moment and it came to me. I'm not gonna lie, I did get results.
Yeah.
The scale did keep going down. That's the thing. And I mean, I don't know what would have happened if it didn't. Well, I do know now because I recently actually did experience a regain of weight. And it's taught me a lot about the difference, even more about the difference between that number and what I'm able to do with my body and my fitness goals and the things that I strive to achieve on that level. Just to say that I have fitness goals is pretty nuts,
So what's interesting is at no point in this conversation did you say I fell off track or I stopped, but you did say I went through a period of weight regain. Can you just touch on that? Like, what, for someone who is like, wait a minute, how can you gain weight and still be on track and still doing well? What does that mean? Can you elaborate on that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, simply stated, I gained weight because I stopped tracking my food and I fell back into my binge restrict cycles because it's just so automatic for me. I would eat more than I should, feel very uncomfortable, and regardless of all my knowledge and my Zen moments, I thought, you can't eat right now. There's no way. You gotta intermittent fast. Yeah, that's what it is. You're gonna intermittent fast until you get rid of that binge episode. And then what intermittent fast would mean is not eating until I'm basically so hungry. And that type of hunger is a huge trigger, right?
So your intermittent fasting turned into binging.
Basically, because I wasn't using it the correct way. And I would say it's a dangerous tool to use if you find yourself in that cycle of binge restrict. So because it just kind of falls right into that, And so I just really struggled with that. But because I say that this is food addiction and I am a full-blown food addict, addiction is never cured and it comes with relapse. It's totally part of the deal. And there is, people that stay sober for 20 years and they don't relapse, and that's fantastic, right? But it's okay. But because relapses come with lessons, you can't learn about yourself on that next level until you go through this experience. So again, I think it taught me that I am a human being and that it's, it is a disease, that I do have it, and I wish I didn't, I wish I didn't think about food the way that I did, and I was able to stick to, what I want, my goals. But something comes over you, man, and I want to do studies about it, but something comes over you at night, and you're just like, what I could use is a bag of popcorn in bed, so.
But what I find interesting is you didn't define your relapse as no longer being on track. You had a relapse, and that was part of that's part of it, but you're still on.
Correct.
So what is the still on part? Like, can you paint a picture of that?
So I just, like I said, part of the lessons I learned the most in this whole period was the difference between just kind of sorting out my eating stuff and my fitness. And that the two don't need to conflict in any way, because that's something that really can happen. So when you feel like you're not eating the way you want to, you can really have a strong pull to not do anything at all and wait until the conditions are perfect so you can get started again. But I really, really challenged that, and I just found movement that felt good for me and just kept moving, didn't argue with myself, didn't say this movement isn't good enough. You used to be able to do this movement. It was like, do not stop moving your body every day, because that actually makes you feel very good. And that is what would kind of renew I told you, my vows, right? So people say, like, I recommitted to my goals. Like you said, I never lost the commitment, but just the way people renew wedding vows, every day I renew my vow to myself that I'm going to be as healthy as I can possibly be.
So what I got out of that is sometimes there are things that you can't do as well, or maybe you can't do at all sometimes, or in your case, you're facing this relapse, this extra challenge, and while that challenge was maybe slowing you down in one area, there's another area, such as fitness, for example, that you still have more control over. So
Just body movement in
Body
general.
movement.
Even if I wasn't ready to go to a full workout class, I would say, well, you love the beach. Go take a walk on the beach, remember? Because I love it.
So it's multifaceted.
Yes.
And not all the facets are always all the way on.
That's right.
And you're focusing. You never lose track of what you're also are doing as in addition to the things that aren't going as well.
Correct.
We had a guest once who was having a conversation with another guest in the lobby, and she was like, oh, "My wrist is hurting. I don't think I can do anything today." And the other guest next to her goes, "Honey, you got a whole lot more body than a wrist."
That's right. Exactly.
And so while her wrist couldn't perform, she could still do some lower body stuff.
Absolutely. There's a quote, I cannot take credit, I will not take credit, but and I don't know who said it, but it says that whether you think you can or you can't, you are right.
That's a great one.
Yep.
I love that one.
So that's just the truth of it, and not to be dismissive of negative thoughts, because most of the time they are totally automatic. Nobody's like, I'm going to think I'm a piece of junk today. Like, no, nobody's technically doing that. It's just that we have these expectations.
These doubts.
And expectations, doubts, perfectionist thinking. And so I don't define myself that I relapsed. That's not what defines me. What defines me is that every day I wake up, even though I had a binge episode last night, and I'm like, it's okay. I can have my banana. We're going to do the yogurt. We're going to eat the things that we're supposed to eat for your body, like this, every day. So that's what's lasted.
Yeah. So are you saying that self-talk is also part of it? Like,
oh my gosh. Watch what you say, because you're always listening. Always.
You're always listening to yourself.
That's right. You're
and
a creep.
By yourself.
That's right. People it's so automatic. And then when we slow it down, we can see, oh my goodness, like this is very unkind talk. And ironically, it's the people that would never say this to another human.
What's your take on practices? So we had a guest on the podcast who, she does self-talk. It's like one of the things that she does.
Sure.
What's your take on like mantras and saying positive affirmations, and do you think do those work for you? Do you think those work in general? Like, what are your thoughts on affirmations and positive self-talk practices?
I think whatever works for someone is fantastic, but it's just got to feel genuine, not like some sort of rehearsed speech.
Not like a fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Basically. And I saw a revision of that saying, and it was face it until you make it.
Ooh, I like that.
Right?
Face
Isn't that, because I don't like fake. My thing is true self-therapy. It's got to be the truth all the way to the end.
Right, because I personally, I'm not speaking for Hilton Health necessarily on this comment, but I agree with you that I think if you don't fully believe the affirmation you're saying, the caboose of that affirmation is the thought that that's not true.
Correct.
So you're all like, you can't, like, if you don't fully buy into it, or if you don't partially buy into it, or believe that if you don't believe it's possible, there's always going to be that afterthought of that's not happening.
Exactly. It's not about just taking a negative thought and converting it directly to a positive. So what we do in CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, is that we do a thought log, where we basically take your negative thought and put it through court. And when you have court, you do defense and prosecution. So you're going to need facts to support that thought, right? So I don't think I can go do this 3-mile walk today, okay? So what are some of the facts to support that? I've never done a 3-mile walk. My feet kind of hurt. It might rain today. Those are kind of facts to support.
Put them on the table.
You put them on the table. So what are some facts that support that you can do a 3-mile walk? Well, I've been working toward it. If I feel tired, I can always stop. It's okay not to do the full 3 miles. Any amount is okay. What is the alternative balanced conclusion? I'm going to go to the park and walk as much as I can, and if I hit 3 miles, great, and if not, I'll go for it next time.
So I'll either stop at 3 miles or before that if I feel like it.
Balance.
For any reason at all.
Instead of, oh, I can't do a 3-mile walk. Oh my God, of course you can. You might even do a 10-mile walk. Like, wait, what? I just said I can't do it. How are you going to tell me I can't?
And just to reinforce from our end that it's not, like you mentioned, all or nothing. It's not that, like, doing 1,000 steps is nothing.
Correct.
There is benefit. There's actually seen benefit going from no steps a day to 2,000 steps a day. And then going from 2,000 steps to 4,000 steps a day is another benefit. It's a spectrum of benefits. Something is better than nothing.
You absolutely got it.
Yeah.
I'm no mathematician, right? But you can't get to 10 without 1 through 9. And people want to skip that and get right to 10. And I've been reading about habit stacking and just kind of being able to incorporate things and then wait till they become part of the lifestyle and then add another one.
So for those who don't know what habit stacking is, can you just explain what that is?
I mean, it's not my thing at all, and I don't remember. I think it's James Clear or something like that. But he has a bunch of books, The Atomic Habit. Yeah, exactly. So basically, it's something I've been bringing to the attention of my perfectionist clients, where we want to get 1% better every day. So what people want to do is kind of overthink from day 1 to 98 and then just knock out the whole 100 in those last 2 days. You know what I mean? Which obviously is going to be very, very challenging, which will most likely lead to disappointment because you're not going to be able to do that. And then you feel discouraged. See, I couldn't even do it. It's because you didn't want to recognize that small change. Small changes add up.
Totally.
You know?
Absolutely.
And so let's just start there. I'm telling you, you know my clients' biggest challenges? I'll tell them, okay, we're going to do a 1-minute walk. 1 minute. And one of them, you know, I mean, it was just like, it was such a situation where it felt like, oh, wait, you don't mean a minute. You mean just go get a good walk in. And I was like, wait, what? No, I said 1 minute, you know? And it's like, no, it can't be for just a minute. That's a trick to get me out there doing more. And I'm like, no, it's actually, we're working on exercising that muscle of making it feel like enough. And just saying, okay, I did what I was supposed to do, and that's that. And just being able to wait.
So for the perfectionist, it's actually harder for them to do a small task than a big task. And it's important for them to practice the small task.
Correct. You have to.
Never thought of it that way.
That's the thing, because we want to get things done. We want to get things done. We got to-do lists out the wazoo. The to-do list has a to-do list. You know, part of one of the shifts we do with perfectionists to go from busy to mindful. You know, because the idea that we're just always busy is going to create exhaustion, resentment. You know, it's not sustainable.
And then also within that busy, during the times you are busy, is it necessary busy or is it productive busy?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So balancing busy with mindful, but also what is that busy?
Sure. A lot of overthinking. People are doing a lot of overthinking, and I think, I'm going to say this on the record, the remedy for overthinking is action. Take any action.
Give an example.
Literally get up. Get up off your seat. If you're sitting there overthinking, if you're in bed, if you've just hit this moment of paralysis by analysis, okay? Get up.
I've been there.
Just get up. Literally do a jumping jack. You know? Like stretch your arms. Walk to the next room.
It's like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Your spouse is asleep and you get up and do a jumping jack.
If you're,
if you need to.
You know, that's a whole nother story, David, for another show. But, but seriously, it's even physiological to interrupt this rumination of thought. You have to take an action. Any amount of action.
That's true.
Yeah.
We often talk about in our motivation class that the fuel for motivation is action.
Correct.
Showing yourself that you can do stuff fuels your motivation.
Sure. Motivation is a tricky thing because it comes and goes, just like moods, just like feelings. No feeling is final. So the happiest moment, the saddest moment come and goes, just like the weather, exactly, right? But what we need to do is have some kind of discipline, because that's what's going to really make things sustainable. I might not feel like it. I will tell you, every day I wake up and I'm like, I'm definitely not going to work out today. Like
every day you have that thought.
Every day I wake up.
Every day you have to overcome that. That's okay. So
this
how
is
do
what
you do that?
So ready? I can't take credit for this either.
Okay.
So I do watch, some influencers and people that have similar journeys to me that started over 300 pounds and worked their way into a healthy fitness lifestyle. So This one woman says, never make that decision from bed. So if I don't want to work out, that's okay. But I got to get up and go to the bathroom and start my morning routine, and then I can decide. And every single time, by the time I hit the shower, I'm like, oh, I wonder what music they're going to play today. I'm actually excited to go for my work. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But every morning I wake up and think no. And it's not like, what do you mean no? Maggot, you better get up and give me 20. No, I'm like, all right, you don't have to. You don't have to. It's okay. But let's not make that decision right now. Like, I hear you. You said no. Okay. Let's go to the bathroom, see how it is, splash some water, see if you change your mind. Work with yourself.
Work with
yourself. Be
and I
kind.
feel like I could talk to you for hours.
Oh.
We'll have to do this again.
Yes,
I do have
wait.
one last question
Yes,
for
sir.
you. If you had one piece of advice to give to our listeners, just on, they're struggling to make a change, they want to make the change, what's that one piece of advice?
Wow. Okay. My piece of advice would be pick one thing and do it. Pick one thing. It's going to feel like you have 10 things that you need to do in order to get things started. But all you need to get things started is one thing. So walk outside, get out your door, put your shoes on. That's your one thing. Put your workout clothing on. Call the friend, make the appointment. Just pick one thing and do it. And do it until it feels like it's part of your habits. Then go to the next thing. So pick one thing.
You heard it. You heard it from Ann herself.
You heard it live.
She's living it. She's helping others live it. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode, and we got to have you back again.
I gotta come back.
There's more episodes to be had here for sure.
Can't wait.
So, and thank you all for joining us today. I hope you got a lot out of that episode. I know I did. So again,
that's all that matters.
That's all. That's the only reason I do this.
That's what I guess that happened.
So, no, remember, this is ultimately for you. Let us know what you thought of this episode. Let us know what you want to hear from Ann again next time she's back on.
Yes.
Also, let us know who else you want us to talk to, what else you want us to talk about. So, we'll look forward to hearing that feedback, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.